Good evening. I'm Diane Funston, and this is the May edition of Poetry Square. I'm coming to you as Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture Poet in Residence from Yuba Sutter Culture Arts and Culture in the Yuba Sutter area of California. And we have three guests tonight, three women poets, all with their own unique style of poetry. And I will get us started with reading some of my own. I have a little true story where yesterday it was a pretty windy day here, and a very large liquid amber tree fell over in my yard, and there it is. You can see it's in my swimming pool. And my mom saw it, and it kind of wiggled at the top and then slowly went down, and there it is in the pool. So I'm waiting for an insurance adjuster. And, I'm definitely, even though it'll be 97 here this weekend, I likely will not be in the pool. So I just wanted to share that with you. And so I decided to read some tree poems because trees are on my mind right now. And this first poem is called Sweet Gum Tree. Anyone who knows or has, they're very popular here in the Sacramento Valley. You see them all over, and the unfortunate thing about them is they have prickly balls. Their seed pods are very prickly, and they dry and they fall all over the ground, and you're constantly sweeping them up. The birds, especially finches, they actually get to the ball and suck the seeds out. There's 2 seeds inside of each ball, and the finches will come through, and they love these balls. And I haven't met a person yet who likes them because you can actually step on one. Not only if you're barefoot, it's very painful, but if you step on one with your shoes on, you actually can slide forward like you're on roller skates. The good thing about them, aside from providing a lot of shade, is in the autumn, they are a beautiful scarlet red color that they turn. So, and I had 5 of them in a row. One of them I lost in my fire 2 years ago. It had to be taken down. And this one just fell down in the wind yesterday. So I do have 3 left. This is called Sweet Gum Trees. How I love the trees that line my driveway. They unselfishly give air to breathe, shade to the yard, home and food to the birds. They are eternally giving every day. The birds that make their nest in the limbs graffiti my car with rude messages of gotcha. Gorgeous green leaves give way to fluffy seed pods that drop and explode pollen on my same innocent car. In the autumn, the trees grow golf ball size gifts, hard, brown, many thorned and heavy. They hail down from on high and cover the driveway. We slip and slide and cut our bare feet on their bounty. Though I love the shade, the green, the mature size of stately sentinels, here long before I was, the gift that keeps on giving, not to mention piles of leaves, sweet gum trees, you drive me wild with your generosity. And now, of course, there's a bridge right across the water, and that certainly needs to be taken care of. And here they're called liquid amber trees. And back home, the house I grew up in had gumwood trim, and the sweet gum trees are what they get the gumwood from for the old houses that have gumwood trim. And this is called Elements. Such a dream I had last night. Under the covers, my portable book light losing brilliance, my battery needing a charge. Losing Wordsworth placed to darkness as the book dropped down on the floor next to Freud. Such a dream I had last night. A gale wind was calling my name, an undercover echo in my ears. I fought to stay in bed, did not want to wake too soon. The wind, nearly entering window pane, could shatter protective glass. Such a dream I had last night. Voices floating in the storm, imploring me to join them. I was warm and away from the howling, hurling hurricane fury. I reached out for more blankets to hide from the siren sirocco stirring me. Such a dream I had last night. This morning I awoke exhausted. Looking around the room, blankets on the floor, the book light smashed and broken. Astonished, unbelievingly, I saw all my carefully crafted poems strewn in a circle on the floor, beneath the window, unlocked and thrown wide open. And this poem is called A Walk in the Woods. And my spiritual home is kind of up about 5 hours from here in the Redwoods, up in Humboldt County. And my son and his wife have a farm up there with livestock, and they grow a lot of vegetables and fruit. And we were just up there over Easter and just love going there. They're a short drive away from all the redwood parks. And if you've never seen the redwoods, it's I can't say enough about the redwoods. It's a very spiritual place. A walk in the woods. Cathedral Grove, the trailhead narthex beckons us farther in to silent sanctuary. Take the trail. Go forward lightly. No turning back, no standing still. Covering ground, airy ferns glisten bright green. Spider splayed fronds hold like fingers to forest floor. We are an afterthought at the foot of these ancients. We look upward toward canopy, toward eternity, and inward towards ourselves. And when I was a kid back east, we had lots of horse chestnut trees, which have died off. I know they had the Dutch elm disease back there, and they had some problems with the horse chestnuts, and they were city street trees that, again, had very prickly outside balls, and, they just didn't replant them. So this is called horse chestnuts. The horse chestnut is sealed, protected by a sharp, worded shell, hard to crack open, the fruit inedible. I collected them as a girl, back east, from city street trees. After whacking the case open, the nut was revealed, dark brown and glossy, polished like fine lemon-oiled furniture, the kind we never had. And this is a bit of fantasy, and it's called Leave Me Alone. I was curled in my favorite chair, dogs on my lap, tea in my mug, happily reading the seed catalog. Somewhat slowly at first, then more persistent, inside my sleeve, something was crawling. A leaf appeared on the floor. I attributed to being trailed in from outside. I scratched my arm. Another leaf dropped out. I brushed it aside, thinking it was stuck on my sweater. I rose from my chair, trekked out to the kitchen looking for a snack, then back to my cozy seat. A line of leaves led me back to the room. I thought the dogs had dragged them in from the yard. I swept them away, then snuggled back in, brushing more leaves from the cushion. Again, itching came. I scratched at my sleeve. My fingers caught on a hard, stringy cord. I pulled out a vine. It was longer than long. I was amazed as it kept pulling at my feet. Another itch, another sleeve, another one out my pants leg. More clinging green. Then swiftly, silently, but for my scream, the vines entangled, anchoring me to my chair. Now, green as could be, no one else home. After a struggle, I settled back to my tea and my retreat. After all, I can't get up, can't do anything but read, so I curled up tighter and relaxed in my seat. And this is another poem that takes place up in the redwoods, and it's called Redwood of a Lifetime. Listening to a new CD, a woman's revenge song about a scorned woman waiting for his savage black eyes, waiting with her shotgun. Knowing the wind will change, she hunts the beasts that hurt her and bellows, "He'll bother me no more." I think about you, the forest saving the land, the water I remember. It takes a forest fire for certain trees to germinate. I'm sure the fire when he left me, that I thought destroyed everything I had, burned to the ground all hope and trust, made me put out fires everywhere. I think now the loss forced new growth, seed pods that wouldn't have germinated before, both cracking open to the celadon green, growing now close to 15 years, a redwood of a lifetime. And I have quite an urban garden. I have replaced my lawn in the front with fruit trees, vegetable beds, flowers, of course, the sweet gum trees. There are two left in the front yard, one left in the back. And I don't have the conventional lawn, so I have a lot of bees and birds and things I really love to see, and it's all organic. I don't use any pesticides. So this one is called Black Mission Fig, one of the many fruit trees I have. Black Mission Fig, you tower over all. Reach up for power, for electricity in wires above. You slap a back with leaves large as big man's hands, on tributaries from the main trunk, thick as elephant muscle. Rising high you reign, Queen Khalifa of the garden, of other fruit trees that bow below your ample shadows, like many hands waving to entitled royalty. We bow in respect on day of pruning, remove suckers and hangers on, search your raiments with saw and shear in our steady work of cracking branches. Take only the necessary for the promise. For more obsidian fruit come spring. Black Mission Mother, your fruit has blessed mouths of saints and sinners alike. We do not tame you, nor hold you back. the generosity of long history, your fertility from the chalice to the blade. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we're going to hear from the first of three guest poets. We're going to hear now from Peggy Seeley, who's coming to us from Florida right now.
Thank you, Diane, for inviting me to this event. Thank you to Shantae and all involved in this production. And especially I thank poetry lovers and to those willing to be persuaded. I'm proud to be a member of Foothills Publishing in Kenona, New York. They released 3 of my books. They're available on their website. I'm going to read selections from each of them. The title Teacups in the Mud, which is the first one from Foothills, came about from my reading journals and stories of pioneer women. And I set out to do a collection of their experiences. But soon I realized I didn't have enough of those for a whole book. So I realized we all have baggage of some sort that would make our lives lighter if we just left some of it behind. Here is Wagon Train. Like beads laid out for stringing they are, rolling along the desert floor, reluctant, pulled by a force they are powerless to defend against. The women, riding, some of them made tall, reins gripped in hands no longer soft, a few within, crammed among treasures, infants at breasts maybe, most walking under sunbonnets, dresses bleached and pounded, corsets, even in the heat, even in the desolation. They have not the lust to wander that compels their men. What then? I feel such a connectedness, reading their journals, seeing with their eyes. I, who push buttons for hot food, clean clothes, medicines. I, who never lay on my belly by a river, grateful to lap water like a cat, or left my grandmother's cherished china, teacups in the mud to lighten the load, or, horrified, aimed a long gun at living flesh, or buried a child with no sheltering tree anywhere. What then? It is the yearning summoned by a midnight sky, the promise of prayer. It is the shiver of unjudged desire, the comfort of another dawn. It is the joy of feeling relevant. It is the memory of innocence. Wrestling the Ghosts, which is the second in the poems from Foothills. That was inspired, that title, by a story my father told when I was a little girl. He claimed he actually did that as a young man. And here again, I chose to include poems of all of our struggles to defeat what haunts us. From part 1, I'll share a poem based on the story of Trayvon Martin here in Florida. You may remember hearing a great deal about that a decade or so ago. So it's based on that, called Backfire. He wants to make his girlfriend laugh when he visits her tonight after school. She's depressed since moving with her family to a new neighborhood. He thinks he'll show up wearing something cool, maybe a new hat. He's tired anyway of the baseball cap turned backward like everybody else. Should have kept the dreadlocks, get a do-rag. He could try a Stetson, be a cowboy. Here's an idea. Felt fedora like Bruno with his yellow sunglasses, all the girls think is fine. In the end, he shrugs into his gray hoodie. Chill in the air, dusk coming down. He stops at a corner store, buys her a bag of gummy bears. Gets a soda, too, supersized, they can share. Wishes he had a smartphone, GPS her, but calls her on his old cell. Walks, talks. Feels a looming shape behind him. I don't like this, he says into the phone. Some creepy freak following my ass. Get out of there, she tells him. Run. Hell no, he says, I ain't about to run. He folds the phone, turns around, stands his ground. Part 2 of that book has memories from childhood. Almost everything I write about happened somewhere to someone, but this one actually did happen to me, nearly invisible. You didn't run to the doctor in those days when you fell off the monkey bars, say, and conked your head, or when you sat in the middle of the double bed cutting paper dolls from a catalog with the big scissors you were forbidden to touch, and somehow drove the points deep into your thigh. If it happened to be one of the times your father lived at home, he took care of it. He fetched a bottle of whiskey filled from Uncle Charlie's bathtub, closest thing to pure alcohol we had in the house. Mom tore strips of rag and hovered. For once, she kept her mouth shut. I read her face, though, and looked away, watched blood soak into chenille. Pop hummed my favorite, "You're a Sweetheart, if there ever was one," poured the stinging liquid on, pinched both parts of sliced flesh together, and ran adhesive strips across and across, then wrapped the rag around. He made me take sips from the same bottle, then stayed beside me while I fitfully slept. He was gone, of course, by the time I'd healed. Scars professionally executed since for new knees, say, or a middle-aged organ repair, are thick and pink and obvious. You have to really search to find the nearly invisible one Pop made. It's a scar, nevertheless. The title, "Too Many Vases, Not Enough Flowers," came to me one day when I opened a cabinet. I love yard sales, thrift shops, auctions. I love vases. You guessed it. And then it became a metaphor for much of life. I included poems with anything to do with nature, and I must have had some mental telepathy with Diane because I'm about to read Defending My Tree, a big magnolia that I have in my front yard here in Florida. Almost every week, a truck stops, soliciting prohibited. They don't care. They see the tree. Landscapers working down the street. Once a sallow-faced, stooped old fellow, watery eyes pleading, battered pickup, hand saw in back as if that could do it. Two women have a business to build. I think of a line in a song from Hello, Dolly. It takes a woman, a husky woman. The two don't discourage easily. I love the privacy, I tell them, hidden on my porch from passers-by, from the dog lady I alienated when I invited her pooches not to pee on my lawn. I love the sounds of leathery leaves in morning breeze, of cardinals in some sort of bird celebration, of rain pouring through thick and tangled branches. The women leave their business card. This guy stays hopeful, appearing every month. He makes a strong case, disease, fungus. You know that breeze you love so much? We're in hurricane territory, lady. You want that giant through your roof? Remember the tornado that blew through? We've been through all this. He's a hunk, dancing eyes, golden skin, muscles. I cross the lawn. I stand close. The top of my head barely reaches his shoulder. I tip it back. Our eyes lock. Go away, I say, and he does. Sheltered. This is for one of my sons. A new pair of mournful eyes got to him, this time on a face half brown, half white, comedy, tragedy, yin and yang, life and its opposite. He hasn't named her yet. He keeps to that size, 35 pounds more or less. The leash is new. He doesn't believe in hand-me-downs, except the water bottle, which happens to be brown and white, like her fall in love with me at first sight face. It's the eyes that capture, though, that speak the unspeakable, with a still, small spark of trust. Take me with you, and I will pay you in kind. We will heal each other. He sends me her picture. I can't read her face the way he does. I see only the mask. Promise me, I beg, I command. Don't break his heart. The yin, the yang, stare back. Claire Songbirds of Auburn, New York, is a recent publishing house begun and run by 3 women. They published my latest book, Disturbing the Dust, and you can find this on their website, Claire Songbirds, or on Amazon. Many of these poems are a little more political and a little more inspired by the Me Too movement. A matter of perception. She was blonde. She was buxom. She was boisterous. Pain? Honey, you ain't known pain till your man run off with a skinny bitch flirt from the Sam's Club. She wiped the counter where my frothy drink had left a puddle and leaned over. Avoiding her cleavage, I met her eyes. She winked. I see the books you've been reading. Monday it was divorce and its aftermath. Yesterday, I brought Adjusting to the Single Life. Today, it's How to Survive in a Man's World. I could write one of them, she said with conviction. How to Feed a Passel of Kids on minimum wage. You got kids, honey? She patted my naked left hand. Louse even took the ring back, huh? You'll be okay. You'll make it. I tell my girls, be careful out there. Lovin' don't last. Pain do. My smile was tentative. I didn't know what to say to her. I slipped a 20 under the plate, retrieved my book, returned to the university library to study harder for the BA in psychology I'm this close to earning. Throw away the key. That door was barred, closed for good, I thought. Then along came Kavanaugh. Discourse, hostility, vitriol. I thought of my sons. The professor is especially vulnerable. The minister could be accused easily, falsely. The accounts manager in an office where women dress provocatively. Well, don't they? Some of them. When Dr. Christine Ford spoke, I wept, and my door burst open. Why this time? Similar events through the years didn't cause that. But she told of the room where it happened, who it was, no doubt at all. So many details she couldn't recall, so she is, of course, lying. So many details escape me, too. What part of the year it was, who else was in the house? Was there a party? Noise on the other side of the door? I know I was 10. I know who it was. I see the bed where I used to be safe. I feel his breath on my neck. I know where his fingers are. He had come to my house often. He said he wouldn't be able to again if I told anyone. I liked him to come. He brought presents, wrote, sang funny songs. I didn't tell anyone. He did come to the house again. I wouldn't look at him. I left the presents untouched on the table. We moved away by the time I turned 11 when I closed that door. For good, I thought. Then along came Kavanaugh. I'll close with a selection from part 3 of Wrestling the Ghosts, which includes a quote from Elizabeth Barrett Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Choosing my memories. The way you kissed me the first time, and I, naive, said, Buster's watching. Buster, the big stuffed bear you brought me that Christmas, and your little sister thought it was hers and cried when you carried him off. The way you looked in your navy whites as your ship sailed from the harbor, and the way you hurried me to a cheap hotel in Newark when I took a bus to meet you an eternity later. The way you cradled our newborn daughter, steadied her bike, studied with her for college. The way you worked 2 jobs to save us from foreclosure, and I got my engagement ring for our silver anniversary. the way you still explore tall grass for violets before the season's first mowing. Each time you open a new can of coffee, you bring it wherever I am so I can inhale the aroma. Each time you wound me, I heal because of better memories and because sometimes you kiss me good morning the way you kissed me the first time. Thank you. And now enjoy the wonderful poetry of Lorraine Arsenault.
Thanks, Peggy. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Shantae. And I am delighted to be with this group of poets. We have a history together, some shorter, some longer. And I live in the very center of New York State, and I'm very attached to the small village I live in and the rolling hills that surround it. My poetry often comes from those places. And about writing, that will be my first poem. She told the group, Lorraine, she lives in her head. She said it like it was not the ideal. I sat there wondering why that was a bother. What if I do? I thought. That is where the words are. All the beautiful words streaming around in alphabet rivers, or rolling down airy slopes, tumbling one after the other, cavorting like puppies at play. They float like satellites navigating among stars, or burst forth from darkness like sparkling fountains of exploded fireworks bringing light. They nudge and brush against each other, dashing about like children playing tag. They sail like white triangles touched by sunbeams. I roll my tongue around their sounds just to listen to them, to hear how they make me feel. Ripe and juicy, some. Others, pure like bells ringing in icy air. Some are smooth and fragile like robin's eggshells, or velvety with luxury like costly cashmere. Others still are magical as sleight of hand, or woeful as the song of a mourning dove, or cutting like a sharp knife's edge. They have power, these words, to raise the soul, to quicken the heart, to well the eyes with tears. So what if I live in my head? The words are there, beautiful words in rivers of alphabets just waiting for me. I am a yoga teacher, 500 hour yoga trained teacher. And so the next two poems come from that experience. The first, yoga teacher. Mother's doll was a stick. She dressed in leaves and flowers. She taught me to give my heart to the humblest thing. My dolls were of vinyl. I dressed in cotton and voile. They let me bestow my love on idyllic things. I left my mother's house dressed in ivory and lace, wrapped my dolls in tissue in tight attic boxes. I birthed two babies, girls I dressed in smocking and bows, hugged them close until they showed me how to let go. Dolls fashioned of flesh and bone come to me now. They ask me to bend their legs, stretch their arms, make their spines long. I do. Joints unlock, muscles soften, minds let go. Tears weep from secret wounds, fall in streams to the ocean. This is also from my experience as a yoga teacher. Fragile vessel. She walked through the door holding herself together as one might hold a cracked pot working to keep soil from seeping through the opening. She struggled to conceal the fissure, careful not to let what was inside out. She let her coat slip from her shoulders in measured time, relieved her feet from her shoes, slowly navigated passage across the room. The cleft widened more with each deliberate footstep, exposed bits of her she labored to conceal. She reached us, freer, let go for not being able to hold on. The vessel then split wide open. Without warning, clumps of old pain, stones of abuse, mold-crusted disappointments tumbled from her onto the floor. A few at first, then many more wet with tears, poured out in the muted glow of twilight. It started years ago, a way of easing hurt, a glass of wine, a bottle maybe, every day, until she could hold no more. We wrapped our arms around her like ropes as to set a seal to fasten her pieces whole. Empty, there was room now to fill with new clean earth, water, sunshine, seeds of hope. This poem is about the last time I saw my youngest brother alive, waiting for words. He stood at the door to leave, half in, half out, clad in black t-shirt, khaki shorts, toes bare and worn sandals, looking at me, his sad face gray. Was he saying, "I'm sorry? I have to go? I wish it could be different"? I waited for words, balanced taut like deft acrobats clinging to a high wire, stretched between us, working toward me, balancing, yet never moving forward. I sat at my desk, wanting among paper piles, messages, mail littered about, tethers pulling my attention, phone ringing, intercom sounding. Someone walking in snapped the line that connected us. He turned, hampered, his back to me. He walked through the door to the other side, silently, alone, taking his words with him, leaving us each half a rope. This poem next is inspired by Pablo Neruda's Lost in the Forest. My poem is titled Found. Wandering from forest, she came upon a shore, a boy tugging a kite, string, hope amusing sky. She watched, brushing the trail from her shoes, bits of broken bells, flecks of hearts, rain spots. Sun drained down, shedding cinders around her, as shells tattered by restless tides, wave tossed to earth's lip, poked through sand, pierced her feet, made her howl, fist to sky. Shards of light flickered through dusk, sparked a hazel twig held in her palm, made it sing like a flute without holes. Melodies spiraled skyward from her core. This next poem was inspired by this diptych by Terry Player, a visual artist from Ithaca, New York. It's called Train Ride. The train's chant, Zusha, Zusha, roars up from steel, driving hard over steel. Wheels press against rails, mile after mile, exhaling each colon mark between abutted tracks. Ghostly etchings appear across sky like apparitions of transmission lines to a world beyond, but are unable to bear messages or carry voices we can hear. Scenes flick by, exposing spent fields, specters of barns, a windowless home. There in the midst, deep shadow cradles a sun lake, brilliant with starfire melted into meadow, bare of clouds pink and gray, where hay flattens and mortals, warm and illumined, plant seeds, watch rainfall, kick up earth dust. We evolve, acting out our contracts with heaven, shifting back and forth between sun and moon, moving from light to dark and back again until each joy-filled, heart-wrenching detail is satisfied knowing the train never stops. This one is All That Glitters. I grew up in a family that had, who was involved in the entertainment business. We had a nightclub, so I got to see a lot more than the average little girl. And so I wrote this in response to those memories. We were in the 48 Ford he bought her to drive us to buy groceries, visit family, go to the doctor. She pressed a little more on the brake, eased the car into our garage, her dark hair slipping from the sun. When a spark from the floor touched my eye, I leaned over, held up a rhinestone earring. Her face fell into my lap. It lay there flat, colorless. "It's not mine," she said. And 7-year-old me knew. It happened after last night's show, after that woman's voice slid gold notes through the mic over to him, after her gold hair flickered in the spotlight, after the spark of the earring took his eye. That's when my mother fastened another button over her heart. I have 5 minutes. Grace. This is a poem about a reunion with a fellow writer and the memories we may have shared from 1969. A long walk up old stairs, soft rasp of slipper over wood, the turning of a knob, a held breath. He lay in the attic asleep between sheets of typeface char, tapped onto onion skin, covered in Camus' ink dust. Whispers of old folk songs, chants of Vietnam protest beat against her ears. War is no place for a poet, he wrote. Hands dropped from clock face, stars crossed skies undiscovered. He slipped between sunsets. What could have been fused in fate's womb in a winter when marrow splintered in the cold of it. A phone call, footsteps through icy snow, a long walk up old stairs, a bowl of warm soup shared. So this poem is a short one about how I felt about all the fake news in 2017. There it goes. Look at it roll. My poor head, cracked open, splintered into skull shards, spilling out photos and sound bites of white supremacists pulling triggers, politicians drooling mud, hearts black and white drowning in blood, terrorists exploding bombs, exploding words, fake news, actual news. I study the rock, pushing it up the hill yet again, steep and slippery. My ears bleed, my feet numb, my arms quiver with the weight of it, and then my head fell off. 2 more poems. Sacred. This came from living through the pandemic. We took a walk last evening, the black dog and I, through the city past sealed doors of boutiques, art galleries, gift shops, eateries. Windows tossed patches of light at our feet like postcards written home of the fun we had had. No buzz of traffic, no human cacophony, no one. But a lone young woman playing a violin, her wistful chords meandering tenderly through dark, silky air. We climbed aboard her notes, sailing far beyond, touching stars, weaving moonbeams, touching the slow dance. Dancing the slow dance. A flotilla of teens rushed by, running us aground, their voices spewing wind, overturning our ship. We swam to a side street, lured to quietude, its inky pitch enveloping us, sheathing us in warm, womb-like silence. That's when I heard it, a forgotten ancient chant, sung from the stillness of my soul. I heard the soft velvet sound of my own footsteps. And the last poem has to do with February 24th, 2022. Grueling times for those in Ukraine. I wonder how she is, the woman who made me a coat. I found her on Etsy last year, a face not visible to me. I ordered coats from stores we know, returning them after they arrived. No lining, cheap fabric, skimpy to wear. I thought, Ukraine knows winters like I do, bone chilling to the marrow. I asked the woman if her design was warm, with room for sweaters to be worn. Her message was, yes, insulation veiled within. I emailed measurements, US dollars, worried over the agreement we made. She wrote she had much sewing to do, Christmas, you know. By New Year, it will arrive to you. Fine, I answered. I've no place to go. A pandemic, you know. I waited weeks as they came and waned to receive the effects of my gamble. At dusk one day, where snow built up on a step outside my door, I saw a brown box, modest and square, with tags showing customs postponed it. I brought it in, cut its tape, released the contents inside. Fold upon fold, made to look small, lay my custom-made camel coat. I slid my arms into silky sleeves, feeling the weight of the wool. I wear it to the office, to restaurants for dinners, and think of the woman who made it for me. Is she crouched safe in some underground corner? Are troops shooting at her, shelling her home? Is she holding up her sewing machine to shield herself? Will Maria be cold? And that's my time. And I'd like to introduce Susan Bloch. We have, through the miracle of the internet, become poetry colleagues with Craig Jury. So Susan.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm very pleased to be here, and I appreciate Diane inviting me. And I'm very happy to be reading with my, Lorraine and Peggy and Diane. I am a poet and glass artist. I see the two art forms as being very connected. The images that come to me, I use both in my art and my poetry. I use writing in my glass art, and I have shows of art with poetry in them, and many of my poems are in various anthologies. I'll begin reading with, my poems are usually about the earth, people I know, and nature, and also things inspired by the news. This poem is called The Sky's Truth. Clouds become an hourglass in the sky, drop granules of truth pooled at my feet. My bones electrify, blood quivers, my head sets erect, neck limbers, prepared for reality, for more, for no smoky filters or clouded facts. The smoke binges on hidden meaning, hides wide, spreads low, bellows loud, lusts in open air, turns into a dirge. The problem is, there is a hole in the sentence. Truth gets through. I track it everywhere, sweep it up, find it in corners, floorboards, my mind's edge, my eyes, tear, irritated by smoke, constant lately. I wait for the sun to look like itself again, light lemony in a pale blue sky, not orange from a fiery filter. The smoke binges on the sun, our sky, our trees, gobbled gone. We watch helpless as if the smoke is separate from the burning separate from the flooding separate from the power of the wind. We harness it and the truth. We want to ride off into the sunset. Which sunset, though? The renegade red or its gentle sister setting in a clear day? So, like my fellow poets, I also have a poem in honor of a tree that meant a lot to me once. I live in California now. I'm reading from Texas, And this poem was about a willow tree that stood in my backyard in New York. It was huge. 5 men couldn't put their arms all the way around this tree. It was so humongous. This is called Non-Existent Branches. Even now, I feel a giant void where the tree stood in the large yard on the swing set side of a green hedge. It towered behind an old house built a century ago. It glimmers white at night, slight neon edge, roots to sky. When I step close, its noble shape vibrates like the itch of a phantom leg. We survived, thrived even. Sisters of that lone tree moan. Their voices speak through vacant grass. We watched midnight slice night, lightning strike, shatter the tree. I feel pain outside my skin, within cells. The doctor pokes, prods, asks where, wants a pain level, 1 to 10. I say, listen to the sound on your hill, where stillness fled, where redbud grew, where vultures flew. His eyes stare blank as cold glass marbles, reflect non-existent branches. They wave, speak in tongue, thunder bellows. The healer's hands are charred. His touch is tarred. Nothing grows. The heaved tree whistles low, claims her legacy. This poem was written during the time my mother was dying of COVID, which was this past October. I sat in her room by her bedside, and while she was sleeping, I wrote many, many poems, and this is one of them. It's called Beauty. I revise all my definitions. Her beauty fills the room, presses against the walls, coils around, faces me. A crumpled man, thinner than she, walks by. His slippers beguile us. Night, day blend, wait to engulf us. We are united by the onslaught. We've come to this, words conveyed through 2 held hands. Gaunt, her skull reveals her elegance. Strong forehead, sunken cheeks, clear eyes. This is another one I wrote for and about my mom. Maybe. Maybe it's part of loss, this tossing, turning turmoil, this rise of resistance, rising ache, rising regret, rising remorse. Maybe it's time to be aligned with night, suspended, a limbo wait for sight. Maybe it's you unbound. Maybe it's only me, alone in need, unguided. Maybe you'll come to me here at 3 a.m., doors, windows thick, walls thinned, dog quiet. The man sleeps. Me, I doze in your chair. Maybe you reach inside my body, feel its heat, blood, know me as lava, cool my volcanic self, temper its eruption. Maybe tomorrow I'll be whole again. This poem was inspired by a electro-symphonic album called Wayward and Upward, and is in a anthology by Off Topic Publishing, and all the poems are also inspired by that album. It's called Waywardly Mobile. He walks away from city town in winter summer, feels life raw, feels pulse of sky, sees shape of land, treads granite. Surrounded by leaves, tree, mountain, bear, he sleeps to falling water's beat, cradled in rock's crevice. Wakes to wander, leaves no trace, returns, tells us he's alive, baritone boom, chants memory, maybes, laughs through distant miles, gone again through mystery's curtain of disappearance, lost to us. Text shows on trail, 3 a.m. Or could it be we're the ones away? He is home, rooted to Earth's bounty. This poem is called A Trip, and it's published in the anthology by Eclectica and also Hunger Anthology by Transcendent Zero Press. We are hungry, headed to the airport, pull into a lot. There is no shade. We park under the wing of a seagull. The smell of ocean lingers on her feathers. I bite into a tomato sandwich. It is fresh off the vine, explodes with summer, farms, sunshine. Baskets of magenta petunias hang over our head. Fast food crows nibble wood bits by the car, move on to chew on French fries. We receive sad news, take it in stride. A willow weeps at my window. Its green leaves whisper, the tree stands weathered. 2 silver banners wave welcome, another shouts sail. An American flag undulates over them. We pretend we're going for a trip, not surgery. It will do. The air will be warm, the sky clear. It will be us too. We sit masked on a plane, grateful for an empty seat between us. Some wear their mask below their nose. I'm alarmed. We need to come together. I watch the news, listen to the willow, read to understand. I have no lessons. Each moment is a chance to choose my journey. I want to be kind. Rest under the wide white wing of an egret, nestle in her safety. This one is called Salt, another one that I wrote for my mom. I am midway through my grief. Salty memories emerge, waves surge, roll. I am 10 years old, jolt to the ocean's floor, choke on sand, breach like a whale, surface elated. I taste salt, tumble inside my grief, feel tears wet on my cheek. My brain examines their length, reconsiders lakes in the universe. They expand into rivers, oceans. Swimmers splash and laugh. Grief burns my skin. It's white like salt. I look up at my dying mother, asleep in her chair. She is translucent as sky. Birds migrate through clouds above her younger self. We are at the beach. She sends me into the ocean for a cure. I play in the water. She watches me, laughs, waves me into her warm towel. My eyes are red, cheeks wet. The taste of salt is on my tongue. She lies in bed. Her gloved hands lay folded. Small blue hearts sparkle on wool. Her chest rises and falls over her stillness. Rises and falls, rises and falls. She calls me deep into the ocean. Salt calms me. I wait to heal. This one is called Goodbyes. Tomorrow I will wake to the smell of moss, feel dampness in the air, walk away from goodbye. Today, walls crumble, fall dismantled. I am swallowed by a mother's love, learn it is too big to drown. I wrap her in thank yous, lose my equilibrium over clothes on a rack, a hat, the red watch she wore there by her bed under a lit lamp. Time clicks by, louder than the second hand, the storm outside, nearby waves. Words comfort, fail, fall half spoken, drift into the night. They spill into memories, promises, visions. We are dolphins, speak sonically. We are rivers. Fish tickle us. We giggle like girls. We are mountaintops, kiss thin air, hunger for breath. We are human. Sit together, silent, wounded. One slips into readiness beyond earth, body, thought. She speaks to someone she will soon see, has missed long. The other settles into the hollow, sees her in the mountains, rivers, forests, wears the red watch, doesn't look at the time. This poem is called Drift. I close my eyes, drift beyond salvation, see trees rooted in ocean beds, like sunken ships. Dolphins jump between branches, a landscape of my own making. We rejoice in the moist atmosphere, fling ourselves in sand, pretend all is well with the world, pretend we will live forever, pretend people get along. The currents grow stronger, we swim to its roar, trust in the sound of laughter, the mischief of children, the ease of past mistakes, forgotten now. Did I think this was hard? We float mindlessly. Salt water lifts us, licks our wounds. There are no tomorrows or yesterdays. We decide to stay, feel cold. Our bodies shiver. The sky turns dark. Silence overturns all sound. Our bodies drop like rocks, fall into oblivion. We glide like kites, sightless, become stars over the earth, have purpose. We illuminate, endure, bring hope to those below, drift on the currents of night. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. And now back to Diane.
And there you have it, May's edition of Poetry Square. Thank you to all three of my wonderful poets. Fantastic reading this evening. And thank you again to Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture. And next month, we will be hearing from Molly Fisk, Bob Stanley, and Joan Leota. And look forward to that, and we'll see you then. Good night.